Good morning. Good morning. Welcome and thank you for coming. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces and friends and colleagues. I know we have some folks watching through live streaming, so welcome to all of them. I just want to get a little bit of a sense of who's here from the community. Can I just get a show of hands? Who among you are faculty? Faculty. Okay. Can we turn it up then? Joyce, where's your hand up? Thank you. Okay. One of my faculty not unwilling to speak up. Good. Students? Any students? Oh my gosh, we got to do better on that. We got to have more of you here next time. Administrators? Whoa. Okay. Whoa. All right. Okay, that sends a signal. Staff? Staff? Ooh, a good number of staff. Okay, alumni? Yeah, some of you are alumni. Come on. All right. Okay, people who came for the coffee and donuts. That's just a minority. Amazing. Okay. All right. So my understanding is this is the first kind of town hall meeting that we've had at the medical school in quite a few years, and I hope it is not the last. And to be candid, I am a little bit excited but also nervous about the forum, because I plan to speak for some period of time and then open it up to questions and answers. And that always means you have no idea what is going to be asked. And so fortunately, I've got my brain trust also up here helping out some of the other folks who, from the academic and administrative side, support me at Gordon Hall. So let me just start by saying I am very, very excited by what we have before us, which is tremendous opportunity. And my plan as dean is that with your help and partnership, I think we can together make Harvard Medical School an even better and stronger place. Now that's saying something, because I think arguably, as I've been told, we're really talking about what is already the world's leading biomedical institution. And when we have that kind of lofty status, as my senior mentor David Nathan is fond of telling me, there's only one way to go. And unfortunately, that's down. But I want to resist that. I want to make sure that we aren't resting on our laurels, but if anything, we're working really tirelessly to try to do even better. So what I'm going to do over the next 30 minutes or so is talk a bit more about my goals, and to emphasize right up front that it's not only just what we're planning to achieve, but it's also vitally important about how we succeed as a community. And I'm pleased to point out that there is an HMS community values statement. You can read it on our website. But I want to repeat its core elements, because I think it serves as a guide and a framework for all that we do. The values statement says that we value collaboration, we value service, we value diversity, we value mutual respect and accountability. And these are words that really should be our beacon and our inspiration. Now, before I start talking about the plans that we're putting together for the future of HMS, I want to just give a nod and special thanks to Barbara McNeil, who has served as interim dean for the last 5 months, and she's done a great job at already starting to build community. She's reinitiated some of these community meetings, which I will plan to continue. I also want to point out and thank Jeff Flyer, who was my predecessor, who did set a very, very high bar for achievement during his 9 years as dean. I also want to mention, some of you will have come to the event that President Faust and Provost Garber did a week and a half ago, which was sort of the announcement of my new deanship. The themes that I'm going to recount today are going to be familiar if you heard my talk there, but I'm going to expand on it, and I'm going to talk in somewhat more depth, and of course then I'll take questions. So I'm planning to talk a little bit about what I see as my role as dean, how we might build on our strengths to make HMS even better and to work better for all of you, and in the end to talk about our plans for tackling some of the challenges that I know we face. So I also want to minimize expectations in the question and answer period. I will not have all the answers. And even bolstered by the brain trust that is really some of the most dedicated and competent people that serve in Gordon Hall for all of our benefit, we may not even collectively have all the answers. But I will say that we're going to listen and take the questions seriously, and if we don't have the answers, we'll certainly get back to you. And then, of course, I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to mingle, talk to one another, and so I'm looking forward to the reception at the end. Lots of people have asked me for more information about who I am. My sense is that I feel pretty well known to many in the community, but let me tell you a little bit about me, not to wear my heart on my sleeve, but to just give you a little bit of an insight about who I am. So I grew up in a small town. The town is Catskill, New York. The village has about 4,000 people. My mom was a teacher there. My dad was a traveling salesman. I have 5 brothers and sisters. That's where the Q in my name comes from, George Q. Daley. Quentin stands for fifth born. I didn't always want to be a doctor. That drive really surfaced late in my college career. But I did have strong influences in my family. My grandfather was a country doctor who literally would go out in the cold of winter in rural upstate New York to do house calls in a horse-drawn sleigh. And currently I've got a brother who's a surgeon, I've got 2 sisters who are nurses, and clearly service to others in the form of medicine was held in very, very high regard in my household. I came to Boston, it was 39 years ago, so 1978, I came to go to Harvard College. And I think those of you who know me also know that I essentially have never left. I've spent a total of 3 summers of the last 40 years living somewhere else than Boston. So that may contribute to criticism of being somewhat insular, inbred. I'm probably not alone in this community of having that. But I did spend a fair amount of my career at MIT, and so certainly I at least have that breadth, for what that's worth. I began as a philosophy major in college. And I had a work-study job as a dishwasher. And that was good because I had actually worked as a dishwasher and a kitchen worker essentially during my entire high school. After my freshman year, returning as a sophomore, I decided that maybe I could find a more interesting way of doing dishes. And I answered an ad for a dishwasher in a laboratory. And I went to work in Dan Branton's lab at the Harvard Biolabs. And within a few weeks, I had talked myself into being able to do some experiments at the bench. And that was an experience which really patterned my entire career and my commitment to biomedical research. I stayed in that lab for the following 3 years, ended up writing my senior honors thesis in Dan Branton's laboratory. And I should point out, I'm still basically the main dishwasher at home. I handle most of the shopping and the cooking, and I'm the type of cook that likes to clean the dishes as we go along, and I usually am the one with dishpan hands. So after Harvard, I joined the Harvard-MIT HST program and the MD PhD program. I lived at Vanderbilt Hall my first year. I had a first floor room that overlooked the dumpster. And so I was awakened every morning at 5 a.m. when the dumpster was emptied. And that basically turned me into an early riser. After my first year of medical school, I moved back to Harvard Yard. I lived in Harvard Yard as a proctor for 2 years, taking care of freshmen. And then I moved to Quincy House at Harvard, where I lived for another 10 years as a resident tutor. So all totaled, I think I ended up with 17 years of living in Harvard dormitories, which I think is a record for Harvard mooching. And if they say you are what you eat, and I ate all that food from the Harvard cafeterias, well, so while I was there, all those years, I was doing my PhD at MIT with David Baltimore. I went through all of my clinical training. I did internal medicine at the Mass General, hematology oncology at the Brigham and the Children's. I spent a year as chief resident at the Mass General. And then in 1995, I got married, which is about the only thing that got me out of Harvard housing, because my wife refused to live there. So I started a lab as a Whitehead Fellow at MIT while I was on the staff in hematology oncology at the Mass General, and I was there for 8 years, and then moved over to Children's Hospital, where I've been since 2003. I was recruited into the Department of Biological Chemistry and Molecular Pharmacology here at the Quad, and took an offer to have my laboratory based at Boston Children's Hospital in the Division of Hematology Oncology. My laboratory continues there on a smaller scale. Our interests have ranged across blood diseases, blood development, pluripotency and reprogramming, and cancer. And in the future, I aim to tailor my interests to focus more on those core questions of blood development. Until recently, in taking on the deanship, I also was the director of the Pediatric Bone Marrow Transplantation Program, which really was a clinical outlet for some of my core scientific interests. So I think, as you can see, I'm deeply entrenched here at HMS. I'm fiercely loyal to the institution, and I hope that that will hold me in good stead. I care deeply about my colleagues, the faculty, the students, the alumni, and the many staff who are essential to making this place hum. So this community is rich, it's invigorating, it's inspiring, and it's my hope that I can infect all of you with my sense of pride for this place. If I can't, then it's going to have to be a challenge that I tackle, because I want to make everyone feel the great sense of ownership that I feel. As for my personal life, my wife is Amy Edmondson, absolutely wonderful partner for the past 23 years. She's a professor of leadership at Harvard Business School, which is amazingly fortuitous because I'm definitely going to benefit from her counsel. We have 2 teenage sons who live with us at home, Jack and Nick, and they keep me grounded and they make me eager to go home at night. But as my wife is fond of saying, I also have another family. It's my lab. My lab is my family. I think some of them are here. And I will have a smaller family, but I will continue a very strong devotion to that family. And I will be taking on the community here at Harvard Medical School as an even larger family. Some people have asked me about my style. What is my leadership style? Well, simply put, I don't really have one. I I lead by listening. I lead by following. I believe centrally in the importance of transparent and candid communication. I think all of those who know me know that I value directness. In some ways, it's really why we're here today. I want to start a very direct and personal conversation with all of you. Not just that you'll hear from me, but that I'll be listening to you. So when I first was announced as dean, I sent a community message out asking for people to send me their ideas and their questions. And I received hundreds of emails. I tried very hard to respond to all of them. And if you haven't gotten a response, let me know and I'll continue to try. It's amazing what I learned. There's a lot of you out there who want to help me, which is really reassuring. There's a lot of you who want to help the community. And there's a few of you who reminded me that not everyone voted for Hillary Clinton. So there's diversity in our community. And I'm very, very much looking to have your input. The input is extremely important to me and is going to help me to shape my thinking as dean. Now, of course, I realize, wow, over the last few weeks, the volume of emails, which I had thought to be extraordinary as a PI running a lab of some 30-plus people, it's gotten now even more overwhelming. And so I recognize that fielding the input is going to get harder and harder as the demands of my current job grow. Now, that's one of the major reasons why I have brought Willie Lynch on board as my chief of staff. Willie was a postdoc of mine who later then became a senior scientist in my lab. We were together for 12 years at Boston Children's Hospital before he moved to become the executive director of the Stem Cell and Regenerative Biology Department, where he's overseen the administration there for the last 3+ years. I think Willie's warmth and his interpersonal skills are legendary, and he will be essential to helping ensure that you will have an ear in Gordon Hall. I want to point out that Willie is also a proven scholar and a teacher, an extraordinary teacher, an amazing mentor, and has been a public voice for science. So he's not shy about speaking up and speaking out. So as chief of staff, Willie will help me to build and maintain open communication and foster sound relationships across the Harvard Medical School community. And I want to introduce Willie and give him some moments to make some comments as well. So Willie, please.
George said he hoped to infect you with pride. Someone infected me with something else last week, so sorry I'm a little gravelly this morning, but I'll keep this brief. Thank you, George. I'll drink some Purell afterwards. I just want to say a couple of things, if I may. The first is that institutions, including ours, are collections of people united by a common purpose, and that when people are supported, amazing things happen and the world can change for the better. Though I report to George, I actually work for you and everyone else in the HMS community. Students, fellows, faculty, staff, alumni, even administrators. And I'm eager to hear how I might help. Lastly, I want to thank George for inviting me to join in his call to service. When he asked if I might be interested in working together again, I just said yes. I didn't even need to know the details in order to decide. It's that kind of an opportunity, and he's that kind of a guy. He has a terrific brain, tremendous heart, and is a dedicated friend and colleague. I look forward to a long and productive partnership in the Dean's office and great working relationship with you. Thank you.
It's great to get the band back together. We actually tried to get Alec Hare also, who used to work with us, but she's got another great job. Anyway, let me also point out Susan Dale, who was the chief of staff for Jeff for the last 7 years. And Susan is going to be staying on as a consultant for a period of time to really educate Willie and me. We really need to learn the ropes. And Susan has tremendous institutional memory and great wisdom, and I'm very much looking forward to her counsel. So first and foremost, this meeting is just really going to be the first of many attempts to expand opportunities for just more interaction. Okay, some of that's going to be social, and some of it's going to be formal. We're going to keep holding the quad faculty meetings that Barbara reinvigorated, and we're already planning to establish a series of regular meetings with different groups around HMS, whether you're junior faculty, women faculty, staff, postdocs, administrators, graduate students, medical students. We're going to have forums that are going to allow me to interface with each of those critical communities. So the point is that I need to be hearing directly from you in order to better understand you and to listen to your needs and your aspirations. I mean, the quad is teeming with remarkable people. And social gatherings, like the ones that we'll catalyze, directly translate into intellectual, scientific, and entrepreneurial opportunities. As I said at my installation, never underestimate the convening power of free food, beer, and wine. And I plan to take advantage of that. We don't have a campus center. We don't really have a watering hole, if you will, here at Harvard Medical School, as they do at many medical centers. And therefore, for certain occasions, I am planning to rename the Waterhouse Room in Gordon Hall the Green Dragon Pub. Now, for those of you who don't know the lore, the Green Dragon Tavern, which is, I think, still on Union Street in the North End, was known as the headquarters of the Revolution. And history has it that Harvard Medical School was actually started by a group of physicians who met at the Green Dragon Tavern. So I want to revive that tradition, the tradition of bringing people together under casual circumstances to incubate great ideas. And we're going to do that by periodically turning the Waterhouse Room in Gordon Hall into a pub. Wait for the first invitation. And then I want to think about creative ways to engage across the community. And that means well beyond the quadrangle. We need to build more bridges to our colleagues at the affiliated hospitals. And I'm pleased to see many of you here today. The preclinical chairs have had periodic meetings with the leading scientists and chief scientific officers of the medical centers, and we need to do more of that. I'm planning to host a series of community scientific think tanks, the goal being to bring together scientists and practitioners with common interests, common missions that cross institutional boundaries. Areas such as immuno-oncology, imaging, epigenetics, the neuroscience of sensation, health policy, global health. These are all cross-cutting aspects of our community mission that really give us tremendous opportunities to bring these powerful individuals together. And if you have other ideas for think tank topics, please let me know. I also am excited by the potential and the need to increase our outreach to our colleagues in the biotechnology and pharmaceutical communities. I just read today that in a review of venture capital and biotechnology investment in sectors around the United States, that the greater Boston area is number one, and we need to keep it that way. And infusions of our science into the translational realm by our colleagues in biotechnology and pharma is part of not only our opportunity, but our responsibility. Now, my primary responsibility as dean is to the Faculty of Medicine, especially those that are based here at the Quad, and it's also a core responsibility to oversee graduate and medical education. But the role of Harvard Medical School dean is distinct and unusual in that I also have a broader responsibility for a staggeringly large faculty, numbering greater than 11,000, who are primarily employed in our Medi-affiliated medical centers. And I'm going to need to pay attention to both my local community and that broader community. Now, as someone who's really grown up as a laboratory-based investigator, I want to say I don't like hierarchies. As my lab members will tell you, I aspire to create a psychologically safe environment for my trainees to be able to disagree with me. I want people to speak up. I want people to correct my mistakes. And as I do in my laboratory, and if you'll pardon the casual profanity, I need people to tell me when they... I don't think I should be running HMS in any different way. I mean, that's how we protect ourselves from living in a bubble. That's how we protect ourselves from our biases and our prejudices. So I think we run a strong medical school by encouraging that same safe environment. I want everyone to feel comfortable to criticize, to reach out, to speak up, and to report problems. I also believe very strongly in celebrating diverse opinions, including opinions I don't share. There's a quote attributed to Abraham Lincoln that I read first in Doris Kearns Goodwin's book, The Team of Rivals. And Lincoln said, "I don't like that man. I must get to know him better." And I think that's a very, very important philosophy. If I don't like your idea, maybe it's because I don't understand it. So I will need to get to know it better and to weigh the options. Now, I cannot say I will always be won over by your arguments. You shouldn't expect me to. But I guarantee you that when decisions are made, they will be made with a good, sound sense of the reasoning behind them. So along the same lines, we need to take great responsibility to tackle issues of diversity in our community in a deeper and more substantive way. And I think it's especially important given the divisive political climate of the last year or more. Now, the university recently announced the formation of a task force on inclusion and belonging. Now, this resonated with me, but I think we need a stronger, deeper evaluation of the issues that we are confronting uniquely at the medical school. The issues that we're confronting in our hospitals, in our communities, and those communities are local, national, and international. It's critical for us to celebrate the diversity of our community and to chart a course for improvement so that we can nurture the best minds through our educational programs and remedy the pipeline problem that we have for women and for underrepresented minorities. And we need to interface better with the communities that we serve in order to reduce health disparities. So Joan Reed, who many of you know and is an outstanding servant to our community, our Dean for Diversity and Community Partnership, is working currently with Deans Hundert and Saldana to formulate an HMS-centric task force on diversity and belonging. And if you are called to serve, I hope you will. It will be very, very important for charting our strategies in the future. Now, what about some concrete goals? So we know, and external experts from many visiting committees have confirmed, that we have tremendous excellence in the breadth and depth of our scientific enterprise. We have absolutely stellar scientists. I'm looking back and seeing a very recent Lasker Award winner. We have remarkable people here. We have practitioners who are at our Harvard-affiliated hospitals who give those hospitals their peerless reputation. We need to not just preserve that excellence, we need to build on it. We need to do even better. And one area to make us stronger is to build on more effective interdepartmental and interinstitutional collaboration and communication, which I've already alluded to. Another goal we need to have is to understand better the range and depth of our science. We need to be able to understand our strengths and our weaknesses. Now, over the last couple of years, there's been very, very high-level groups that have come into our medical center, chaired by David Baltimore, come into our School of Public Health, chaired by Harold Varmus, who's looked at our scientific efforts in the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, chaired by Randy Scheckman, and looked at Harvard science in a program chaired by Shirley Tillman. But conspicuous in its absence was a review of the rich science that goes on in our affiliated medical centers. So one of the goals I have is to do an HMS survey of science. And that means not just to look at the depth and breadth of what we have here on the quadrangle, but to understand better the remarkable science, both fundamental and clinical, that's going on in our medical centers. That is going to be essential for us to set a reasoned strategy for going forward. Harvard University is engaged right now in very forward thinking about life sciences. Eastern Massachusetts is looking to preserve its strengths and leadership in biomedicine. In order to set that strategy, we need to know more about our current assets across the broader landscape. So once we have that information, we're going to be able to make better targeted investments in areas where we are most competitive. Our community exerts remarkable leadership already in areas like neuroscience, epigenetics, bioinformatics, immunology, stem cell research, global health, and many other domains. We have far more expertise than I can even mention in a brief set of comments. But we need to be able to further the connectivity. So I've heard again and again that the nature in which our cores function, both within the Quad and at our affiliated medical centers, creates unnecessary barriers. So we're exploring flattening the cost structures and equalizing access. We're going to see what that costs, and we're going to see what advantages it offers to our community. Cell manufacture is a rapidly emerging technology, both in its applications in gene therapy, engineered T-cell therapy, and beyond. And several members of our community are putting forth efforts to build independent GMP processing facilities. And one of the areas that I'm trying to work towards is to come together around a core GMP facility that already exists that can be augmented and can provide expertise and economies of scale for the community in a pre-competitive sense. We have a really outstanding program called QFaster, which stands for the Quadrangle Fund for Advancing and Seeding Translational Research. This ferries projects across the Valley of Death, and I want to see if we can build on that so we can attract more venture capital. Now, if there's a program that we don't have that you think we need, let us know, and we'll take a look at it. Now, a concrete example of our ability to realize community, to leverage the common interests of the Quad and our affiliated medical centers, is cryo-electron microscopy. Today, we're actually announcing the creation of a new center for cryo-electron microscopy. Now, no individual lab or department even could have afforded this. But community leaders like Dean Flyer, who began this effort, Provost Alan Garber and Associate Provost Rick McCullough, Dean of Science David Golan, Professor Steve Harrison, Steve Blacklow, Wade Harper, folks from the affiliates, Gary Fleischer, Sandy Fenwick from the Children's, Barrett Rollins, Ed Benz, the Dana-Farber, and there were others who all came together as members of our structural biology community and interested stakeholders to build this community center. And I think it's going to put us at the cutting edge of imaging molecules at the atomic level. The success that is destined at the Cryo-EM Center is a template for other initiatives. So one such initiative that we'll continue to foster, to build upon the momentum of the prior dean, is to continue to augment our capacity for therapeutics development. We have a strong program, a very academic program in therapeutic science that's led by Peter Sorger. We have an excellent screening facility, the ICCB, that's run by Carolyn Shamu. But most recently, one of our most illustrious and entrepreneurial faculty, Tim Springer, has founded a new institute for protein innovation. And in that, he's been ably supported by one of our rising junior faculty stars, Andrew Cruz of the BCMP. Now, other faculty at the Dana-Farber, especially Nathaniel Gray, who's also a member of biological chemistry and molecular pharmacology, are spearheading therapeutic development for cancer. So our community already has several strong programs, but those programs could benefit from additional cooperativity and additional resources. So Tim Mitchison of Systems Biology and Nathaniel Gray, previously mentioned, have agreed to co-chair a task force that will explore new possibilities for enhancing therapeutics development at Harvard. Our department chairs have already begun surveying the existing Quad faculty, and they've uncovered many robust efforts that are currently underway in therapeutics development. So we are going to build upon these strengths. And the goal is not only to advance the mission of fundamental inquiry, because the discovery of chemical probes will enrich our core biology, but we also want to be able to advance translational goals that will help us to build bridges to the biotechnology and pharma communities and realize the potential for translating our basic science into impactful new treatments. I want to mention Harvard Catalyst, led by Lee Nadler and a group of very, very talented clinician investigators. This is another example of HMS bringing together investigators across our community, largely there in the service of clinical research. Harvard Catalyst convenes many different institutions that all share a common scientific and translational mission. Harvard Catalyst is going to be submitting a renewal application soon. It's going to need help from our community to make it even stronger. But I look forward to continuing to build upon Harvard Catalyst as a vehicle for forging community here at HMS. So at Harvard Medical School, we've made a remarkable commitment as well to delivering compassionate care to the global community. We've got partnerships at the individual and the institutional levels, from Peru to West Africa to Dubai, and these partnerships are furthering international medical education, the building of modern healthcare infrastructure, and disease research. And I look forward to building further upon these endeavors in partnership with the likes of Paul Farmer and other dedicated leaders. Another major responsibility is advancing new medical education, and we're currently involved in instituting a transformative new curriculum for our medical students. This curriculum, called Pathways, upends the traditional training approach. It gets medical students into the clinic in their second year. It returns them then to a flipped classroom where they do all of their preparation up front and then come into the classroom to engage in a direct set of problems that teaches skills of team building and problem solving. And this new curriculum is slated to help our students prepare for a lifetime of learning in a time when the sheer volume of information is staggering. Our ability to educate transcends the traditional models as well. Our Office for External Education, which is led by Dean David Roberts, is developing new learning platforms, dramatically extending the voice of HMS to new classes of learners around the world. And let me spend a few minutes about our challenges. I still believe this is a time of remarkable opportunity, even when, since the financial collapse of 2007, 2008, we've suffered through years of resource constraints and quite a bit of red ink. We're not alone. We're not the only medical center. In fact, essentially every medical community across the country are struggling with the similar challenges. We're concerned about what those challenges are going to be in the future, especially as the uncertainty about the federal government rises and the mounting concerns about NIH funding. Our best weapons to counteract these negative trends are the quality of our faculty, our students, and the impact of our science. What better way than to attract investment, grant support, than continuing to focus on our scientific excellence? But I am not naive about the trends in federal funding sources. And so for that, I know that fundraising is going to have to be a central priority. It's going to be and occupy a tremendous amount of my energy. I'm going to be tirelessly seeking out philanthropists who wish to invest in the betterment of humankind through investing in Harvard Medical School. That's a good investment. I plan to raise money for the Quad, but I also will be engaging in cross-institutional fundraising that will benefit our entire community. The rising tide lifts all boats, and raising more funds overall will benefit not only the Quad, but also the hospitals. Now, as the new dean, I've inherited a long-standing strategic plan that includes selling the NRB. This has been designed to recapitalize our endowment after a number of years of decapitalizing, and also to give us immediate working capital to launch a series of much-needed campus renovations. Now, selling the NRB while leasing it back could be equated with something like a home equity loan, extracting equity from one of our most valuable assets. But in looking at the prospects, I became concerned that we not relinquish long-term flexibility for short-term gains. So currently, I'm working very hard with the leadership team to understand our space needs. And it turns out the old plans probably were formulated with some misimpressions about our space needs, both now and in the future. So while selling the NRB does remain under consideration, I've asked the team in Gordon Hall to come up with alternatives, and we have. And we're vetting those actively. Now, I've also formulated a committee that's going to advise us not just on space issues, but on the sale of property, with an eye towards enhancing our scientific mission while restoring our financial stability, and I will report back as soon as we have progress. Now, most importantly, I want to say that I am grateful that President Faust and Provost Garber have pledged to make considerable resources available to the medical school. They ask that we take it under our own decision-making to try to address the concerns around the deficit, and that we use the new resources as best as possible for new initiatives. And I plan to try to hold to that aspiration. My hope is that with new resources, this powerful community can once again start to feel the wind in its sails. It'll lift everybody's spirit. It'll make everybody want to work that much harder, to do more, not just for our own science, but to bring in more resources. So I've asked the preclinical chairs to engage in a grassroots type of strategic planning so that it's not imposed from me or Gordon Hall as a top-down, but rather that the new ideas that we will seed and nurture will well up from the community. And that's already been happening. The chairs have found that the faculty is energized to offer new ideas and energized to see them cut across departments and cut across institutions. So I'm greatly encouraged by that, and I look forward to investing in targeted ways to take your ideas and turn them into reality. So let me finish, and let me say that I've really just tried to begin to outline some of my priorities, some of my philosophy, some of my plans for reinvigorating not just our culture to enhance communication, collaboration, and a shared sense of problem solving, but to start a path towards some bold new initiatives. I've inherited and am pleased to be able to celebrate the success of the cryo-EM facility, and I plan to push towards a major new effort around therapeutics development, and I look forward to partnering with Dean Hundert in medical education to work on building an exciting and transformative new medical curriculum. And as I've discussed plans, we are expecting to make headway for our financial health. And this will include the possibility of selling property assets to provide much-needed capital, but it will also depend very directly on major efforts to bring in new resources through fundraising. So I've done all the talking. I had said at the outset that I want to be a listener. So as I look, I think we've got 10 or 15 minutes to entertain some questions, and then we'll have a reception where that question and answer period can continue. So thank you very much, and it's important. Aha! We have microphones.
Wow. Hi, my name's Caitlin Howell. I am here with some other students who are some of the student leaders of the New Wellness and Mental Health Initiative at Harvard. And we wanted to emphasize to you the level of student concern over wellness issues and mental health concerns in this environment.
Yes.
And our concern for making sure that students who have mental health concerns that are significantly impairing are appropriately accommodated. And you yourself mentioned at the beginning that we need to do more to increase student involvement in events like this, which help direct our community's path. And we were hoping to hear from you what you plan to do to help address the wellness concerns of students, faculty, and staff overall about the HMS environment, and how you will be involved in propelling these efforts forward, and in what timeline, what your hopes and plans are for this.
Yeah, that is an extremely important issue. The report that suggested that as many as 25% of our medical students are beset by depression at any given time is deeply troubling, deeply concerning. I think it may relate in part to some of the long-standing traditions of the way medical education is done, especially in our clinical centers, the famous pimping, which is really not an educational tool, but a tool often used for disparagement, and is quite disheartening. When that came out, I spoke with Dean Saldana, our Dean of Students. I don't know if Fidencio is here. He's not here. And he assured me that he was very committed to engaging with students around mental health issues. I recently met Stephanie Pinder-Amaker, who runs the college mental health program at McLean Hospital, and have actually catalyzed a connection between Fidencio and Stephanie to talk about how that program might be extended to our medical students. I want to say I think it's an essential part of serving our community that we pay attention to the wellness. I am planning, in part, to take some afternoons and spend time in the medical student societies to sit down and listen directly to some of the feedback to see whether those interventions are working. I look forward to doing that.
Thank you.
Well, thanks very much for a very comprehensive review of where we are and where we should be going. And one aspect that I want you to comment on, because I think you, among all the deans of the past 4 deans, all of which I knew personally, are very well placed to make positive gains, is intermeshing the medical school with the main campus. With your background and your experience on both sides of the river, and with Willie Lynch's background and experience on both sides of the river, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to really create the University College vision that was expanded by Conant and other presidents of the university going back many generations. So I'd like your comments on how we may achieve that goal.
So what Robert is talking about is this sort of time-honored tradition of one Harvard, which I fundamentally believe and embrace. I can tell you that my wife and I moved our family from the suburbs into Cambridge 2 years ago, in part because we wanted to feel a closer part of the university. And really, we are the medical school, which is kind of this satellite, and yet we're part of this amazingly dynamic and more varied community. And I can tell you, we've been benefiting from that. So how do we do it more for our larger community? We have to recognize there are barriers. I mean, the physical distance, the traffic, these are challenges. And I think with the growth of Alston, which is now back on track, there will be a new science campus. And Harvard Medical School will play a role in setting some of the agenda for that campus. So we will be actively engaged in figuring out how to make it easier. So there's going to have to be a look at sort of the way we run our shuttles, the way we have easier transportation that cuts across. We have to, once again, some of this is formal, some of it is social. I want to actually have more meetings that bring together scientists from Cambridge and scientists from the Quad. I've already had a few of those meetings at my home. I like to cook. My plan is to have dinner parties where we bring faculty together. It will touch a small number of us, but I think over time, hopefully the spirit will change.
Lachlan Farr.
Yes, sorry.
Beth Israel Deaconess, thanks for the wonderful framing. One of the biggest challenges you have, all of us have in place, this massive 11,000 faculty and others, is how to sort of frame and structure unified approaches to things across everything. And in that, I was delighted to hear you start with reference to the community value statement. And I have a concrete suggestion. I'm looking at Gina and Ed Hundred. That community value statement came out of more than a year of efforts that were just like the strategic planning that you said you wanted to do, which was grassroots, focus groups, surveys, hundreds of pages, I think, of input from people, and a concrete suggestion to you, including engaging students about values listed, wellness and balance, would be to invite maybe Gina, Ed Hundred, I don't see Bob Trug, but I'll volunteer the HMS Center for Bioethics to figure out how in a simple structure, we can have this value statement be involved in all the strategic planning that you're working on, so that everything we do is really anchored in this, and then people come to work proud because we're really together, all of us figuring out how we live up to this in ways that have that spirit that you talked about so vibrant.
I think that's a good comment. I mean, if I could generalize it, it speaks to community development and a community that's founded on just wonderful principles that we can all share. Dean Nancy Tarbell, who is responsible in many ways for stewardship of this huge faculty across the many medical centers, really has a wonderful commitment to the idea of faculty development, which has core components of the value statement: diversity, advancing women's issues. I think if we can embrace those goals, and I think Nancy spends all of her time passionately dedicated towards those goals, it'll make us better. Marshall, if you want to speak loud, I'll repeat.
George, I want to tell you how pleased I am that you were courageous enough to take this new job.
Some would say foolhardy.
Yes, I'm interested in the S in HMS, and several years ago I served on a committee for the school which was asked to address the question, if you're on the faculty of the Harvard Medical School, are you obliged to teach Harvard Medical students? Much to my dismay, the answer was no. Now, the school dealt with that by publishing the report saying yes, but the answer of the committee was no. And I would hope we would look, you would look, now you've got so much free time, at this issue. How do we change that so faculty of the medical school do feel obliged to teach our students?
Amen. I just heard someone say amen. Yeah. I couldn't agree more with the spirit of the question. And I do think it's one of the challenges. In fact, it reflected in a question that came up ahead of time. In fact, there were questions that were offered ahead of time, many of which I won't have time to answer, and I do want to say that we will research those questions and actually get back to the people who submitted them. But the issue of how do we create the sense of expectation or the sense of kind of responsibility that being a professor, being a faculty member, involves teaching. I mean, if you're a professor, you should be professing, right? If you're an associate professor, you should be associating with the people who are professing. And if you're an assistant professor, you should be assisting the people who are associated with the people who are professing. But all the way down the line, I do think that if all of us want to wear the emblem and bear the pride of being a faculty member at Harvard Medical School, that comes with a certain responsibility to teach. Now, we teach in many different contexts. Many of us spend an enormous amount of teaching in our own laboratories, our graduate students, our postdocs, our other trainees. But I'm going to be sort of tirelessly championing, especially in the context of our new curriculum, the new opportunities to re-engage our core faculty in teaching our medical students and in teaching them not only in the basic science classrooms, but in the hospitals. But I acknowledge that there are challenges. As faculty are being asked to cover more of their salaries, they're being involved as sort of RVU generators, and they're really challenged to make ends meet in the clinic. Every moment they take, which distracts them from money generation to do teaching, is a challenge. We need to figure out a way to deal with that. I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you we're going to get a group together and start brainstorming on this. We need to in part change the culture so that everyone expects and enjoys the aspects of teaching, because I think most of us do. Cricket.
George, I'm struck, well, first and foremost, thank you for your thoughtful comments and insights, and I think all of us look forward very, very much to participating and working hard with you. I'm struck by the banner behind you, "The world is waiting." A little lower at ground level. And I would suggest to you that in addition to teaching our community, we have a very substantial obligation to teach our external Boston community, our state, and indeed our world. And I'm curious what your vision is to expand our visibility and our reach beyond the Harvard community to where I think we need a much more vibrant presence.
Yeah. You know, the challenge, is how do you maintain enough focus on your core constituency, which, is in a fairly narrow radius of where we're standing right now, and yet still remain relevant beyond. I spent some time on the Family Van, which is this amazing outreach program that was started by Nancy Oriole 25 plus years ago. A van that goes around into our communities and just parks, and people show up from the community to get healthcare screening, some education. Harvard medical students serve on that. It's an incredible way that we can show service to our local community. We have a whole department that is devoted to global health. And that creates, just remarkable opportunities for us to essentially function as doctors to the world. We have, as I've learned, it's not just Paul Farmer, who everyone knows and is spectacularly influential, but we have divisions at the Brigham, at the General, at the BI Deaconess, at the Children's. We have doctors and nurses who, whenever there's an international calamity, end up traveling to give relief to those in need. I think it's enormous, and it's important. So, if I could say there's multiple ways. Probably the one that I expect to spend a fair amount of time on is our new, as I mentioned, program in external education with Dean Roberts, because that is a way where we reach across the spectrum of sort of continuing medical education, but also HMX, the sort of online base that can get us to a global community and increasingly engage our alumni. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. I look forward to more ideas coming back from the community to direct that. Mike.
Hey, George. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for having this forum. As you know, there's actually two schools here, one for medical students, and one for PhD students. And then there's a very few number of students who actually experience both programs, yourself included. I would just like to encourage you to somehow get those communities talking to each other. In a time when we're trying to increase translational research, seems like the NIH and other government-funded institutions are pulling back their support for this kind of cross-training that is really kind of vital to getting science into medicine. Mm-hmm. So I hope you'll address that during your deanship.
Hear, hear. Don't tell me there's no more questions. Donuts? Val.
I just wanted to thank you for your wonderful comments, George. I think your vision sounds very energizing, and I think we're all very excited about it. As someone who spent most of my career at Mass General, and now I'm in Cambridge, I hope that you'll convene us in the evenings and at times when it's easy for many of us at the hospitals to get over here. I have
Hear,
the
hear.
luxury of now being a chair and having more flexibility than many clinicians and clinician educators, but I think we're very excited about this whole Green Dragon Tavern idea and all the ways that you're going to convene us. So thank you very much.
Okay,
for all of
thank
this.
you very much, Valerie. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, let me say that this is a partnership. In taking on the role as dean, I am joining a team of both pre-existing academic deans as well as administrators who together really run the school in an incredibly dedicated way. I want to point out Lisa Muto, who has been part of our institution here at Harvard for almost as long as I have, maybe about the same time. But she has taken on the role of interim executive dean, which is really essentially the chief operating officer of this institution, and has done a remarkably wonderful job. It is a big job. Keeping the trains running on time, understanding the financial, the planning, and all of those other complexities. Lisa has been terrific. We have financial complexities, real financial complexities, and for that I have to say I've been very pleased to inherit Mike White, who is our chief financial officer, who has taught me many, many things and is going to be an important ally. I don't have time to mention all of the wonderful people, but I want all of you in the community to be sure that you feel more comfortable coming into Gordon Hall so that you will meet the folks who are here to serve you. Our administration is going to be here to serve the community, its ends, its mission. And for that, just wait, and I can't wait till the first Green Dragon pub, Waterhouse Room, be there. But for now, the next half hour, let's have some coffee and donuts. Thank you. It's okay. Hopefully I...
Well done, George.
Hey!